Republicans just passed Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Yes, that is the actual name of this legislation. It adds trillions of dollars to the national debt. It increases big government. It solves approximately zero of our country's big problems, which leaves me wondering, what exactly is conservative about the Republican Party anymore? I've always felt the general definition of conservatism for me was free markets, fiscal responsibility. That includes lowering taxes and spending. By the way, you have to do both. And above all, a smaller federal government. But today's Republican Party is motivated by seemingly only one thing: whatever Donald Trump wants. I don't even need to get into the details of this bill. Top line, you need to know this. It will add $3 to $4 trillion to the national debt over the next decade, because while it cuts $4.5 trillion in tax revenue, it only cuts $1.2 trillion in spending. And even that's not really cutting. It's just slowing down the rate of increased spending on things like Medicaid over the next decade. It gives a bunch of tax cuts that have almost no growth strategy behind them. Trump's no tax on tips and Social Security provisions specifically. It left big parts of Biden's so-called Inflation Reduction Act because Republicans actually love green subsidies if they're in their home states. And look, you don't have to take my word for it. Trademark 1992 LeVar Burton. Here's what congressional Republicans were saying about the bill before they passed it. Warren Davidson of Ohio said, "While I love many things in the bill, promising someone else will cut spending in the future does not cut spending. Deficits do matter, and consequently, I cannot support this big deficit plan." No. You will not be surprised to find out he voted for both the House and the Senate versions of this bill. Chip Roy, of course, has to be mentioned in any fiscal responsibility piece. So here's him slamming the Senate version of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Again, does something need the word bill and act in the title? That seems redundant. He says, fact, the Senate bill increases deficits and violates the terms of budget deal in the House. Fact, the Senate bill guts the strong provisions to terminate the Green New scam subsidies in the House bill. Fact, the Senate bill removes key provisions we put in the bill to stop illegal aliens from getting Medicaid. Fact, the Senate bill removes key provisions we put in the bill to stop taxpayer funding of transgender surgeries. Fact, we can amend it, send it back, fix it, and pass both the tax cut extensions and border provisions we all want to pass. Happy to stay here every day until we get it right. Guess what happened? They did not stay there. They didn't debate this at all. He's right about all those facts about what the Senate bill took out of the House bill, but the House just voted for it because Donald Trump said he wanted it signed by July 4th. That was it. That's the deadline. He's going to primary you otherwise. So that's what they caved to. Several anonymous Republicans, because you can't say these things publicly, even if everyone agrees with you that's not named Trump, were quoted in The Hill saying on the text chains, on the phone calls, everyone is complaining. There's a few little provisions people will say something positive about, but no one is happy with the Senate version. So everyone is complaining? Well, unless their names are Thomas Massie or Brian Fitzpatrick, the only two people who voted against this bill, they're all cowards and voted for it anyway. Just like Representative Keith Self, who called it morally and fiscally bankrupt right before voting for it. So why is there such a disconnect between what these Republican members of Congress obviously know to be true and then their actions on putting this stuff into law? It's just Trump. Trump demanded that this be passed by July 4th. It's his signature legislation and might be the only thing that he gets through in his second term. And even though he doesn't seem to understand almost anything about it, he just wants it done. If you go against him, you will be threatened with a primary opponent backed by Trump. And speaking of moral bankruptcy, there's something inside of congressional Republicans' brains that says, well, better me be here than some other crazy MAGA candidate. But what is the difference, I would ask them? If you're just going to rubber stamp and go along with whatever Trump says, how are you any different than a diehard MAGA congressman? I take no comfort in your alleged conservative principles you share anonymously with the press if you don't put them into action somehow. They mean nothing. The thing is, they're all correct. This is a terrible bill. Are there parts of it I agree with? Of course. But if you put pickles on a turd sandwich, it's still a turd sandwich. And I firmly believe there are more people in Congress who know this bill is crap than actually support it. So why not throw your constitutional weight around a little bit, guys? Trump can't primary all of you at the same time. He doesn't have the attention span for that. He's far too lazy. You're just delaying the inevitable defeat in the future, either by someone more MAGA than you or a Democrat in 2026 and 2028, when voters again reject the party in power and say next and try Democrats again. The silver lining there being you might get your job back because Democrats aren't exactly a well-oiled machine right now either. I get asked exactly what I mean when I say I'm a homeless conservative. It's this. It's that the Republican Party no longer stands for free markets. The U.S. steel sale to a Japanese company is contingent on the U.S. government owning a golden share of the company, which sounds a lot like communist China to me. If you think that's unfair, I'd say it's at least like the socialism we conservatives balked at when the U.S. government did similarly with General Motors in 2000s under Obama. And there's nothing free market about Trump's ad hoc tariff policies. Republicans definitely don't care about fiscal responsibility. They just voted for $4 trillion to be added to the national debt. Trump added a whopping $7.8 trillion to the national debt in his first term, only about 3 of which can be blamed on the pandemic. So that's still a lot of debt. And what about a smaller federal government? There is no evidence Trump or Republicans want less federal government. They just want to be the ones running it. They're picking winners and losers just like Democrats do. For example, Trump exempting farmers and hospitality workers from immigration enforcement lately. I haven't really spent any time talking about this bill in the lead up to its passing because I knew it was a worthless exercise, not only because there's no convincing spineless Republicans to go against Trump and his cult-like followers, but because we all know this is exactly how this is going to go down. This is what Congress does now. It is all top-down leadership, no committees, no debates, no compromise. It's just, here's a 900-page bill we're voting on in a couple of hours. Get on board or you're on the side of the enemy. That's literally the language they use. But you know what? That's actually our fault. We keep electing these dummies. I think Americans kind of do want a king, actually. That's what annoyed me so much about this No Kings protest. They were absolute bullshit. The people protesting Trump's autocratic tendencies kind of do want a king because they haven't had a problem with the executive branch hoovering up all the power over the last 50 years and Congress happily giving their powers away. They just think it's a bad idea because it's Trump who's that king-like figure, but they're fine with it if it's Obama or Biden. The thing that I want to conserve as a conservative, whatever that word might mean now, is the founders' general distrust of concentrated power and understanding that human nature is flawed. People love to ask what the founding fathers would think of Trump, but I don't think they'd be surprised by Trump at all. I think they structured our entire government and constitution with tyrants exactly like Trump in mind the whole time. What they'd be shocked about is Congress. They could not imagine a Congress giving away its vastly superior Article I powers to one guy at the top of the executive branch. They fought the Revolutionary War to prevent that from happening. That's what they'd be shocked about. So I think it's really us, the voters, who are to blame for all of this. We keep electing the people on our team because they allegedly are better than the alternative. And then we complain when they capitulate to Trump. We keep foolishly hoping for different results. I'm even guilty of it. I keep thinking that maybe the Republican Party might be different once Trump is gone, even though we haven't had that chance yet. They might go back to actually being conservative, something Trump, by his own admission, is not. But I no longer think that's possible. I think we're going to be homeless for a while.